What's up, YouTube? This is Game on Cloud 9 here with a new Bleach manga 476 prediction rant. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do my videos a little bit differently. I said this in my One Piece video in case you don't watch One Piece and just, letting you guys know on here. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and, instead of giving like a long thought out synopsis, well, not thought out, but instead of giving you guys a long synopsis of what happened in the previous chapter, I'm going to go ahead and actually just pick out certain things that happened in the chapter. I'll tell you guys if I liked it and give you my prediction, which is actually what this video is supposed to be about. But that's how my videos are going to start going. So if you don't like that, let me know. But that's my plan. But anyway, the chapter as far as Bleach goes, the one major thing that I really liked about this chapter is the design of Ichigo's Bankai. And there was a couple things that kind of I guess you could say were a little weird in this chapter as well, such as things like Genjo having Bankai. Even though we knew he had Shinigami powers before, I kind of wonder what happened to them. But overall, I thought it was, I'm gonna say, a solid chapter. I'm not gonna really say it was just the best chapter in the world because I was a little disappointed, with the whole Ukitake thing and Ichigo knowing about Ukitake and, what his plans were and all that sort of stuff. But, I liked, Ichigo's new design of his Bankai. It looks like his sword's even longer than it was before, which I really like. I'm like, only thing he needs is just a new move. If he could at least have Kubo just give him two moves. It could be variations of Getsuga. I'm fine with that. And the reason why I'm fine with that is that we see variations of different moves in all types of series. I'm like, so if he had a variation of Getsuga Tensho, I'm fine with that. But at least a little bit something different. Like, okay, we all know that, he has full bring. So if he has full bring, couldn't he do something like that? He can, if you can full bring the ground and you can full bring water, especially if you think about you can full bring water, doesn't that mean you have some type of manipulation over it? Couldn't he mix up, maybe, use his full bring to his advantage? I mean, I know he doesn't really have it anymore, but when he gets it back, I presume he'll probably get it back. But I would really like to see him mix it up, show some amazing abilities. If he's just going to have Getsuga Tensho, he could at least fight a little different. He could at least switch up his fighting style now that he, or at least, when he has his full bring back, when he gets that back. But, oh man, next chapter, I'm hoping that Genjo is actually, his whole powers and all that kind of stuff is going to be explained, that we get to know more about, what happened to his Shinigami powers, because he must have them if he has Bankai. I don't think it's just, oh, Ichigo's powers. I am hoping that Genjo is not just going to be using Getsuga Tensho or using all Ichigo's moves. I hope we're not seeing Ichigo basically versus Ichigo. I want to see Ichigo versus Genjo. Now, another thing, does anybody think that maybe Ichigo is at the same level he was when he fought Aizen? Because, I mean, I kind of still get that sense that he is, especially since he just broke through that dimension and they made it seem like it was almost impossible to break through. So I'm thinking like he's around the same level when he fought Aizen. But I'm like, if that's the truth, does that mean that Genjo was around that level? I'm kind of think, how could Genjo be around, that level? Genjo's never really showed any impressive abilities like that, which is really crazy because you think about, I can't really see Genjo sitting up here beating up Ukiura, or really, I mean, I could see Genjo maybe fighting with Grimjo a little bit. I mean, I could see that, but not really beating Ukiura because Ukiura was like super fast and Getsuga Tensho didn't work. Well, Getsuga Tensho, doesn't work on a lot of people, but it's like, nothing really worked on Ukiura. He was like, crazy strong. I mean, it took Hollow Ichigo to really be able to beat him. And even then he regenerated. I mean, he died, later on, but it took a lot to take him down. And Genjo, I just feel like, he hasn't really shown anything that impressive, but I'm thinking next chapter he probably really is going to show it, really show us something that's really, good. I mean, I'm hoping that they maybe give the name of his Bankai or his sword. Is he going to be like, I remember earlier on he said if you have Shinigami powers and you have full bring, then you gain the power of a transcendent being. Does Genjo have that type of power? Because if he does, then that means he is at Aizen levels. If he is at Aizen levels, I'm like, is there any other abilities that he actually has himself? Something that makes Genjo good. Not just the ability to take from Ichigo, because he had to be strong before, before all this went down. I don't think Genjo was just weak before, especially since it seems like, he's known throughout Soul Society. It doesn't seem like anybody's really forgot about him like that. So I'm thinking that he has a lot of power. So I'm thinking next chapter we're probably gonna get into, probably gonna have some more talking. I don't really think there's gonna be a lot of action next chapter. Probably be a little action towards the end. I'm thinking it's probably gonna go like this, where Ichigo's gonna question Genjo about his powers. He's probably gonna give us a little bit more history on, what happened to him, why he left, or not left Soul Society, but why he, you know, turned against Soul Society, why he didn't want to deal with them, and what his huge deal is with them. That's just my guess, and then probably Ichigo is, probably gonna, like as usual, trade blows, clash a little bit. Ichigo is probably gonna get a little run for his money, because what fun would the fight be if Ichigo is just running around slashing, just winning with ease? I don't think this is gonna be like Aizen, where we saw Ichigo didn't even have to try. He just, well, slash, bam. Aizen's cut, Aizen's bleeding. He's like, oh, you're, weak Ichigo. You're nothing. I can't feel your spiritual pressure. None of that bullcrap. We're probably just gonna get a pretty solid chapter. But anyway, tell me guys what you guys think about this. If you think that the same thing I'm thinking is gonna happen next chapter, then let me know. If you don't, tell me what you really think. What you think is gonna go down. I really want to hear what you guys think. So anyway, please rate. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not subscribed already. So please subscribe. Please subscribe. Do not forget that. Comment, like I just said a few seconds ago, and enjoy your day. So anyway, thank you guys for watching.